Okay.
Are you ready to be a success? Master your career, you're a success. Do you believe it? A success. Come on, let's be a success. See, are you ready to be a success? Master your career, you're a success. Do you believe it? A success. Come on, let's be a success. See, are you ready to be a success? Master your career, you're a success. Do you believe it? A success. Come on, let's be a success. Dr. Lisa, a success. She's a career master. A success. Believe in your success. You are a success. She's a career master. A success.
Oops, sorry. Hey, good evening, and welcome to the third episode of the Career Master Virtual Cafe. Hey, ladies, we're glad that you're here with us this evening for what we consider a thought provoking conversation. And we have some exciting guests with us this evening. Before I will start, however, I just want to give a shout out to those that are with us quickly here. Just so I can see that we have Marietta Cleveland with us and Ani Walker with us, Lindell McEwen with us, and I'm sure others will join us as we go forward. But, ladies, this is our third episode of what we consider to be conversations that are thought provoking, as well as those conversations that would help lift us up and encourage us as we, professional women, continue to navigate life and our professional careers. And so thank you for joining us. I know you could be anywhere else but here, but you've chosen to be with us. So I hope you have your dinner, your snacks, and your libations, whatever that might be, so that you can enjoy the cafe. And so let us just get started, first of all, to actually thank our sponsors, Fifth Third Bank and Henry Ford Health Systems, for giving us the consideration to sponsor and be with us this evening. And then I'm going to also thank our producer, who is Rasheen Barnett from Prosperous Life, LLC. He's here with us today. And I want to begin by just chatting for a minute about why we're going to have this conversation. And as you know, again, it's about advancing women's leadership, but particularly in the wake of the global coronavirus, COVID-19, the outbreak, and the activities, or what I consider protests and riots that are going on because of some frustrations and anger that's going on in the world today around injustice. There's a lot of concern about people that are hurt or depressed, or those that may need help in this time, and just plain hurting because of loss or the fact that life happens. And so we're going to have this conversation this evening about tools to dance in the rain. And in fact, it's raining here. I'm in Charlotte, North Carolina, and it's been raining all day. I hear there's great weather going on over there in the city of Detroit. I'm not sure what's happening down there in Alabama with you, Fifi, but looks like the sun is out.
Oh,
And
yeah.
then we have Kathy over in Virginia. So I'm sure looks like your weather's doing well, right?
Yes.
Yes, yes. And so we're going to get started here to talk about and give you some tools to dance in the rain. But before we start, I'd like to give you the framework. I like frameworks. I work from a framework perspective. And we're going to start today at 7 o'clock, which we always start on time. We open the doors of the cafe. And then I'm welcoming you, as I always do. And then we will have a discussion and overview on the topic that I've already shared After that, the panelists will also have a chance to introduce themselves, and then all of us will have a discussion. For you in particular, as we're going through the conversation, please feel free to chat with us in the chat room. I'm going to be multitasking as I facilitate the discussion. I'm also going to look to see if you have questions and give you the opportunity to say those questions. And at the end of our discussion, we'll ask our panelists to answer them. If for some reason we do not get to answer all the questions, we try to go back through the questions after the discussion or the cafe has closed and answer those questions in the chat for you. And so I'd like to say hi to some more people that have hopped on. Hi, Diane Palmer. Hi, April Holloway. Michelle Brown has joined us this evening, as well as Tamara Fountain Hardy, Charlene McNary. Come on in, ladies. Thank you so much for joining us. So what we're going to do first is talk a little bit about my team. My team and I, as you all know, are still going through some of the challenges from having to cancel our summit, but we've learned to dance in the rain. And what we decided to do was to look at the brighter side of things, to be thankful in this time, thankful for time to sit back and think and reflect, time to be with our families, time to kind of reset and reimagine. We're just thankful. And one of the areas of thankfulness for me, particularly, and I've had the conversation with some of the folk that I work with, is that we're thankful for our first responders, nurses, doctors, police, firefighters, right down to the person that delivers my groceries to my door, right? And at the end of the day, we've made some major changes in how we live. So instead of maybe being upset, we can be thankful and learn how to dance. We're also thankful for the friends who have reached out to us to check on us as African Americans, as Blacks during this most difficult time relating to the death of George Floyd and Black Lives Matter. And so inside of everything that's going on, there's anger, there's frustration, there's such a potpourri, if you will, of emotions that we all need to help one another and how to figure this thing called life out, okay? And so I'm going to right now pause for a moment. And as I'm looking at my notes, I want to have a chance to let our panelists introduce themselves. So the first thing we'll do is ask you ladies to give, if you will, before we start the questions, a backdrop. And the question is just to tell us what factors or experiences led you to where you are now, as you give some backdrop of who you are. So first thing is who you are, and then what led you to where you are now and to sit where you are today. And so what I'll do in terms of giving us some activities, I'll try to ensure that we start with, I think Denise, you're at the bottom. We'll go from Denise to Kathy to Bina and then to Fifi. Okay, we'll start now.
Okay, good evening. So first of all, Lisa, thank you so much for inviting me to the cafe. I believe all things Career Mastered are so powerful. And as you speak about why we are, part of why we are where we're here today, part of that, of course, is this, right? Having sisterhood and support. So I'm Denise Brooks Williams, and I work with Henry Ford Health System. That's my official formal title, I guess, as to why you invited me. But what I think is important in the context of what you said, who we are today, I'm a Black woman that works in an industry that is predominantly held in terms of positions by white men. I am a Black mother. I have 2 daughters, but I consider their lives critical and important. And as I've looked at what has challenged us over the last few months, know that it's a responsibility that I have, even in the position that I sit in, just as a community member, to be committed. I'm an executive in a large organization with a large amount of responsibility. And I want to say, as I said, I got there, part of it, of course, by being trained, going to school and doing the work. But I also think it is because of sisterhood, friendship, collaboration, people partnering with me through my journey. So as I sit today in an executive role, Senior Vice President and CEO of our North Market within the Henry Ford Health System. And for those that are in Michigan, that would be Oakland and Macomb County. For those that are not in Michigan, that would be just under $1 billion of responsibility in a $6.5 billion healthcare organization, and representing 2 counties, 2 hospitals, and probably nearly 100 ambulatory access points. So I will pause there,
Wow.
unless you want me to cover more and let my fellow sisters introduce themselves.
Very good. Thank you for that introduction, Denise. Kathy.
Hi, I'm Kathy Moritz. I'm the executive partner for the Northern Virginia office of New York Life. I am a mother of 2 girls. I am, helping people through this time, as I have been for 18 years, to find their place in the world, right? So I don't sell product. I actually find and train individuals on how to run their own businesses. And, it sounds boring when somebody says insurance, but it's really life coaching. And life coaching starts, I think, with yourself. And I had to really look internally at myself and determine who I am. And I realized, I'm a little tougher than most people. I'm kind of gritty around the edges. And I thought, well, why is that? And what's the bitterness about? And I'm the first in my family who even had the opportunity to go to college. My parents were not born in this country. I'm the first person speaking English as first language. And we're a Jewish family, and we lost, I never knew most of my grandparents, there's wives and children. And so I kind of do carry a chip. So we can talk about this later, but I don't so much with what's going on out there, except I have one privilege, and that is I can hide, right? So I can not tell you who I am and who we are, and then you can't tell. And I grew up that way. So with my family saying, shh, don't tell anybody why we're here. Don't tell anybody who we are. Don't tell them we're Jewish. And sure enough, when they would find out, I went up on the playground. So that was really important for me. And as a woman, to break through every single barrier that's put in front of me. So, I was the first senior partner out of Norfolk, Virginia. I was the first woman to run the Detroit office. I'm the first executive partner that's a woman that they've seen in Northern Virginia. And it's like, that's okay. If you really want to make sure that I get something done, tell me I cannot do it, and I'll just do it to spite you. So I'm raising 2 girls. Don't understand. I can't do that because I'm a girl. That's not in their DNA. And we can talk about this later too. They're so wonderful. I think this time has shown us who we are and who the people around us are. I walked outside yesterday, and my girls were chalk painting BLM all over the front of the house.
Oh, wow.
And so I said, you guys, you sure you want to do that? If you leave chalk out here, you might get some answers. And they were like, okay, go ahead. We'll take them on. Like, so what?
That's awesome.
I love it. That's awesome. I thank you for that introduction. And Bina.
Well, first of all, I agree with everybody, what they said so far. I wanted to thank everybody for being able to even invited to be on this panel with such amazing ladies, and hearing their stories really is inspiring by itself. I do have the luxury of knowing a couple of the people on the panel, but for me, I try to introduce myself as Imani's mom and Aaron Elliott's mother and Tony's wife, and because that's why I'm here, and that's how I stand up every day.
Mm-hmm.
That's my purpose. And this COVID environment we are in right now has reminded me of what's essential and what's important. And so I'm really grateful for it, sort of the path I have to have gotten where I'm at. And so my role, and as Denise said, my official title is I'm Chief Responsibility Officer at Fifth Third Bank, which is a $160 billion organization in 10 states and in 14 markets. Wow. But my chief responsibility in that role, that really is the most important thing, is that I have the responsibility of taking care of and helping underserved communities. And how I got here is I have an undergrad in accounting without a minor, and every time I got a chance, I took social work classes, because at the core of who I am is I want to be a helper and I want to give back. And I never thought I would be able to get paid to do that work until it's on my bucket list to retire and join the Peace Corps. And so that's where I settled it at in terms of what I would do with my life. And so I'm grateful and on assignment around the work that I do every day to help our underserved communities provide access to resources that we think helps the generations to come build wealth and be financially stable and revitalize our underserved community.
Wow. Wow. I'm getting inspired. We haven't even just started yet, y'all. So I can't stand it. I'm loving it. All right. Thank you, Bina. And Fifi.
Yes, ma'am. Wow. I am definitely inspired as well by everyone who has already spoken. So thank you for inspiring me. I am Fifi. My government given name is Latricia Redmond. I am the baby of 9 children and come from a big family, music family. And so, with that being said, my mother is a musician, singer. My father, he plays several instruments. So, music has pretty much been in my DNA. I started playing the drums when I was 5 years old, watching my brother, and I would get on and bang, bang, bang after church and play the drums. Growing up, I got into other arts, gospel mime, and I was able to travel around the world doing that. And so I started Phenomenal Music, which is a play off my nickname. It's FEE, Phenomenal Music, and I host various events here in the city. I started off just really trying to create a platform for up and coming artists who were trying to get some type of stage, presence. So I do that, as well as here recently, I am a new massage therapist. That's a part of my passion as well. I think music and touch are two things that people need. I think music touches you in a certain way, as well as just the laying on of hands. And so I'm grateful to be a servant in that field of music as well as massage therapy. And I am so grateful to be on this panel with each of you. So thank you so much.
Well, we're glad that you can join us. So welcome, ladies, and thank you so very much for taking the time to be with us and to share with our audience. And as we begin this conversation, I just like to always say hi to those that are joining us. And again, I mentioned Diane Palmer, Latanya Orr, Bethany Smith, Taika Gaines. And so as we continue, hi, ladies, we see you, and thank you for joining us. We'll continue to recognize women that come on to be in the conversation with us. As I said when we started, the conversation tonight in the cafe is about dancing in the rain. And I'd just like to give a shout out to Fifi because she's on the cover of our summer magazine with that theme. Yeah, let's give her a hand, Dancing in the Rain. And right now, she's giving you a little backgrounder on her. I'd just like to share a little bit about why we asked her to join and why we chose her to be on the cover. Not because she's not talented. She has like more than the talents you can count. In fact, she's a multi-talented I call it I can never say it, virtuoso. I never say it right. You guys got it. But she is talented in terms of her music opportunities. And so she's been able to show us how to dance in the rain, even when life seems bleak. And her soothing yet stoic vocals of her uplifting song, Dancing in the Rain, are a testimony actually to how she's standing strong against the storms of life. And so the song is written by her. It's an anthem actually about showing resilience by shedding fear and shame. And she penned this song for women's empowerment. I wish it could have been for us, but now we get to have it and we can get to it. I think you'll tell us later how we can purchase it. But it's about women's resilience. And she penned this just before the incursion of the COVID-19. And it's led by Summer Piano. It's a beacon of inspiration. And she has shared that she's one in a million of those whose livelihood was disrupted by the pandemic. And like all of us, I think all of our livelihood has been disrupted, to be quite honestly. But I would just like if you would, Fifi, to tell us about why you felt compelled to write the song. And secondly, how it has helped you during this pandemic and maybe some of what has affected you and your life during this process of being sheltered and inside of COVID-19. I don't know if she can hear us. Fifi? Not sure. Can she hear us? She's on mute. So we'll go to another question because I'm not sure what happened. I think she'll have to come back in. And technology is never working when you want it to, so we just have to keep it moving. And you guys know I'm one of the best ones for like how it goes when you have to be agile and flexible. And so what we're going to do right now is just ask you, Kathy, while we're waiting for Fifi to join us again, is life is not about waiting for the storm to pass, but learning how to dance in the rain. That's a quote that all of us have heard. And it means different things to different people. Can you tell us really what it means to dance in the rain and to weather the storm for you from your own personal view and story?
Oh, it'd be so nice if the storm would end, wouldn't it? So it just doesn't end. It feels like I was born on a night of a storm in another storm, right? So I just have an attitude that I decided a long time ago, like failure is not an option. So, you know, how if you start thinking about what the out is, then you're going to go that way. So, you know, you have to kind of fly as if you have no net, right? You know, the pilot of the aircraft isn't thinking about the 12 ways he could crash, right? He's thinking about how he's going to land. So let's just go that way. And you can't have self-pity, right? I can't tell you how often when I'm coaching people, I'm like, okay, and are you done now? So yes, we understand not everything is great. Look at the positives. Don't have the pity party. Okay, now moving on. I understand 99 things are wrong, right? I got it, right? So we find the opportunity. Even now in this rain, there's opportunity. I'll just quickly share a story. I was talking to a person yesterday and he said, you know, really the reality is he just lost everything during COVID. He lost his entire business.
Wow.
They were opening properties. 8 of the 9 have been foreclosed. I mean, lost all the funding, lost everything. And I was like, I'm just looking at him like, how are you going to function? And his attitude was totally different. He said, no, something different is going to come out on the other side of this. And I'm going to figure it out. And I'm just going to adapt. And I thought, wow, that is amazing. Here we are, right? I was in a business where my job is to coach individuals, see them, take them to clients and sit with them. I have now hired people that I've never met, whose hand I've never shaken, but who I saw on a screen. Every day we help people that we see on a screen. We've adapted. We're busier than ever, right? How could we not be in insurance in this time, right? And it's okay. But on the other hand, you know, I say, don't have a pity party. Be kind to yourself. You know, I'm having days sometimes where it's a lot, you know, it's a lot. It's, I have a new position in a new office that I've never seen. I have people that I've hired that I've never met, things that I've never done before, 2 kids that I think I'm homeschooling them, but I'm not even sure what that was. What was that? I mean, we got through it. And at the end, it was just pass fail. And the teachers just stopped and you know, no graduations, and my kids are depressed. It's different. It's a different time. So be kind to yourself, keep communicating, keep talking to each other, check on everybody, check again, check again, right? The beauty of the handwritten note. Oh, I got a handwritten note. I thought that the sun was shining again, right? So, you know, I sent a gift to someone who was in New York in the middle of all that. And she wrote me a note back and I thought, this is the most wonderful thing. And actually I did get a note from someone who passed away a week after she wrote it. And it's got to be one of the most precious things that was ever sent. So now I'm sending notes. I'm writing all the time.
Yeah. Wow. That's very touching. Oh my goodness. Any of you ladies want to add to that? Any thoughts? Bina or Denise, any thoughts regarding that in terms of definition and what does it mean for you to dance in the rain? Any thoughts about that?
I think Kathy said it best about
Did a
really
great job.
giving yourself the permission to be you and authentically you. And I was laughing when she was talking because if I know then what I know now going through COVID, I should write all my son's teachers' handwritten notes because God bless them. My homeschooling skills are terrible, and I had no idea what it takes to really keep a high schooler motivated, and really engaged. But I will say this, is we talked about, us being mothers, and part of our role as being mothers or caregivers is that opportunity to pause, to take a breath, to breathe, and really realign our priorities and make sure that we're spending time on the things that we love and with who we love.
Yeah.
And so, and that's what I've taken moment, is really being present, not just say I'm present, but to actually be present and to reprioritize. And so thank you. But Kathy said it best.
Yes, yes, absolutely. And we have Fifi who joined us back. Sorry about the technical difficulties. Do you recall the question that we asked, and do you want to share?
Can you ask me again, please?
Yeah, we just wanted to get your backstory on primarily having written the song about resilience and shame, and then how that song came about, along with what's happening to you in your life in terms of the pandemic and how you've been able to deal with it.
Of course, yes. So writing the song, I do that event every year, and it's called Stiletto Monologues, and it's held in Alabaster, Alabama. And it's various women on, and they're telling their story of how they have overcome and survived various things, abused, drug habits, or whatever it may be that they have overcome. And so I was sitting down and I was asking God to give me the words for that particular night, because I wanted it to be impactful. And so I was sitting with my guitar, and the words just started coming to me in that one night, in that one moment. And it burst out. Look at me. I'm not ashamed to show you my scars. I'm not ashamed to show you or tell my testimony, because I have overcome. And so dancing in the rain for me is pretty much about, like, you have overcome, you have conquered, you have survived so much more. Don't allow that rain to scare you into the house and get the umbrella and get your raincoat. But no, dance in the rain. For me, with the song, it pretty much says that the rain for me is a blessing, because rain allows things to grow. Water allows things to grow. And so if you allow it to do what it's supposed to do, then I think that you'll see the benefit of being able to just dance in the rain, because you are blessed to be able to feel that the cool of the water fall upon you, even after all the things you have gone through and have endured. And so during this time for me with COVID, thankfully, I've been able to really survive. Being that I am a massage therapist, we were taken out of our job because that's totally hands-on. It's very, up close and personal with the individuals. But however, God has sustained me, and I'm grateful for that. And so in that time, I've definitely been focusing even more on being able to just redevelop my mission and my purpose, and really be able to hear God about some things and directions about the next moves for my life. So I've really been able to focus on my t-shirt line, which is t-shirt therapy, where it's pretty much like wearable encouragement. Okay, so we have don't give up, you have keep pushing, you have I'm not there yet, but I'm working on it. You have different different phrases, because everybody's not there. And so if someone can see that on your shirt, be like, you know what, I ain't there yet either, but I am working on it. Or, you know what, I was in a really funky space, and so looking at your shirt telling me not to give up really helped me. So I really looked at that as an extension of my songwriting and the things I do. But like I said, this time has really been productive. I've been really productive with the time I've had on my hands. And so it's not been a horrible thing. It's been a really great experience for me to learn and to heal. Some things personally I'm doing with some inner work. And I think sometimes we're so busy. And when you have the moment to just sit and look at yourself, take inventory of your own life, I think that's been very great for me, to be able to take inventory for my own life and do some healing, some necessary soul work, and just evolve. So I'm really grateful for that.
I appreciate that, because as I read your story in the magazine, actually, which was penned by Raquel Harris, Rocky, hopefully she's on. She had mentioned that you had some loss, and you had also evolved from where you were living and some other, and you were very open in that. And how did you find the I call it perseverance to keep it moving and to kind of redirect to go into massage therapy? Because I think you had like a gap there where you weren't sure where you were going to be. Can you kind of share that with us?
Yes. So I was in a very heavy space in 2016. I was living in my studio, like I said, for 7 years. And this studio didn't have, the amenities that everyone needs. However, thankfully, I had people and friends that I can go and take care of certain things that I needed to. But however, I was trying to be this entrepreneur, trying to, do my events and trying to do all these things. And so sometimes money was scarce. I was, pinching pennies, robbing Peter to pay Paul, and Pam was having her hand out too, so I was in a space. And so during that time, I really felt compelled to look into massage therapy. And I looked into it the next day. This really, really strong feeling upon me, and I did so. And I hadn't been in school since 1999. I graduated high school in 1999, and the science kind of got me. It really overwhelmed me because it was a whole lot of science, kinesiology, physiology, all this stuff. Plenty of times I sat there and almost cried. Well, no, I did cry. I cried in the classroom. I cried in the bathroom. I cried wherever I could. I wanted to give up. I wanted to walk out. I wanted to just shut it down because it was a whole lot. However, I'm so grateful that I didn't give up. My teachers wouldn't let me, and my classmates wouldn't let me. And it really shifted my life. It shifted my life to be able to be a homeowner now and have a car, that is not just falling apart. And so I'm grateful for that. And I think that part of me is that, our story is not our own. Our lives are not our own lives. And so someone else may be looking at me and may need some encouragement and may need to see someone persevering and bouncing back after times they've fallen and fallen and fallen, but continue to bounce back. So my story is not my own, so that's why I was so candid and so transparent, because someone else may be where I was. And if they can see hope and if they can see somebody else who came out, then I want to be that beacon of light for them. So,
Wow.
yeah.
Wow. Oh man, I get inspired from that. I'm sure you ladies have too. My gosh. When you say your story is not your own, in fact, that's what we're talking about today, is that, all of our stories should be an inspiration for someone else, but it's our duty to give and pay it forward and to make sure people get that. Right.
Right.
And so thank you for being so transparent to share with us, because I'm hoping and praying, as I always pray before we open our cafe, is that God would have the right people on the line and in our community to hear whatever they need to hear, whether it's from their emotional perspective in marriage or the loss of a loved one through death, or just because they're lonely or depressed, or that they just need to talk to someone. So thank you so very much for that. I just got goosebumps around it. So I want to move forward. And Denise, I think one of the things I wanted to ask you is, with all of the adversity that's going on, and the fact that our circumstances are not all the same, how we behave, how we treat others, or how we see the world, just as Fifi has shared with us, during these tough times, some people spend a lot of time feeling sad and helpless and uncertain, as to how they're going to make it through the storm, through the rain. So in your space, especially as it relates to essential workers, man, I can't even begin to think about what they have to do to get up and get to work every day. What are some of the ways or tools to help those workers or others like us to dance in the rain? What have you all done, or what have you seen, or examples of how people get through it?
Yeah, I think to your point, dancing in the rain, which I just thought was such a profound way to message it, is definitely what our essential workers have had to do. But to your point, I think as the mom spoke, my daughter is a teacher, so she has a lot of empathy for all the parents who have discovered that homeschooling is not the best and teachers are important. So from watching her figure out how to give kindergartners access to technology and tools to be able to continue to learn, to absolutely being in awe with my teammates at Henry Ford Health System, who in the beginning, we didn't know, right, a lot of things around what we would need to do and to be prepared for what the impact was going to be on our community. But what I saw was selflessness. I could tell you endless stories of people who would speak of how they stayed out of their homes after treating people for 12, 14, 16 hours a day, but in desire to protect their families, they would take their clothes off in their garages and they would sleep in other parts of the house so that they didn't infect their husbands or infect their children. So how do you get through that, right? We did everything imaginable that we could think of, and I've been doing post kind of COVID, although COVID isn't over, but at least reentry conversations. And I think our staff would say that was most important for them was compassion. So I think the way we dance, the way we get through, the tools that we use is really, really putting yourself in the other person's place.
Yeah.
So this experience, I think, has taught all of us that kind of we are human, we are absolutely vulnerable, and we're very codependent. And so our first line workers, I think, reminded us of that.
Wow.
And so I know when I had the opportunity to be in our hospitals during that time, I wanted to be shoulder to shoulder with our team members. I couldn't care for patients, but I could pick up an iPad and call a family, or I could go grab something for a nurse or a physician to help them, or I could stand in the tent, which I did on many days, and watch people come in great fear, trying to find out if they themselves had the virus and if in fact they did, what the next course would be for them. I think from a spiritual perspective, a key tool that we used, I had never seen, we're not a religious organization. I've worked in religious organizations before, but I think we found permission to have faith in the workplace.
Yes.
Because our teams will tell you the stories of they were, because of our visitor restrictions, sometimes the last ones with family members as they made their transitions. And the overwhelmed feeling that is to know that you are the last person with that one before they transition from life is an incredibly, it's a powerful thing to carry. So giving people permission to pray, giving people permission to pray with families, as some were afraid to come in, even though sometimes we would invite them in, they were very afraid of what the virus might do for vulnerable loved ones that they had at home. So the tools, I think, I've said it in other interviews, right? It's the things that we learned when we were little, right? Be nice, think of the other person's feelings, play good in the sandbox. No, we were, most of us, raised in some type of foundation of faith or higher power, whatever that may have been. Know that it actually is bigger than us. And therefore, you can kind of hold on, because I think the moments that we have gone through, and COVID being part of it, people would say that we're in a race pandemic on the other end of this, right? Who would have ever thought? In Michigan in particular, we had this like tremendous, storm and dam break in Midland, and then boom, we went right into the acknowledgement of just how vulnerable Black lives really can be. And not that police brutality is new, but I think that we all know that George Floyd's death
Yes.
created a schism, right? And
Yes.
I say part of it is because we were still. I think
Yeah.
maybe Bina, someone else said it earlier, right? Another tool was you had to be still, right? We couldn't do anything. You were
Right.
sheltering in place. So you got closer to family, you got closer to God, you got closer to your neighbors. You started to know the person at the grocery store that was brave enough to come so that you could eat. We were just a different being, right? Not hustle bustle moving. And in that stillness, I think when we saw that death, we were able to react differently because we had a different centering and a different power and a different base, So I think another tool that we're all going to take from this, right, is being present and being focused and being in the moment. And I could go on.
No, I'm listening. This is good. I mean, absolutely.
I
This
could
is
go
powerful.
on. But I invite Kathy and Bina to certainly add to that, because I'm sure that their experiences were the same, because your work and your life became one. I mean, when we talked about the 7-day, 24-hour clock, because you were either caring for people, my husband was caring for me. I'm trying to care for people at work, but, I'm caring for my daughters. I'm running to my mom's house, not going in, but making sure that she had what she needed, from the curb. You're checking on your neighbors, I mean, endless tools of just survival, that we all jumped into. But I will tell you, most of us, I'm sure, will say that coming through it, some of the deepest connections. I mean, friends that I've had for over 30 years. But in the hustle bustle, where all you could do is the quick conversation or the quick text or the like on Facebook, you had deep conversations because some of those friends lost their parents during COVID.
Yes.
And they couldn't be with them, or they couldn't bury or memorialize them in the way that they traditionally would have done. So the way you leaned in and loved as a tool, it's hopeful that we don't lose that, right? Because you felt a sense of closeness and camaraderie that you had never felt. And you felt it with people that maybe you didn't know that well.
That's true.
Because we were on a call today at work and we all said that we are forever changed for having gone through this experience together and in a good way, in a
Yes.
good way.
Yes. Absolutely. Powerful. I mean, I got a lot out of that, being present and being still and understanding, that in the moment and time we've had a chance to kind of see things differently. Wow. Any other reflections on that before we move on to the next question?
I just want to say thank you to Denise and her leadership at Henry Ford Hospital and all of the workers. And from a frontline perspective, your compassion, the caring that you provided family and friends made a big difference. We were in the eye of the storm in Detroit. And so there's some friends I know that can't name a person they lost, and we can name countless of people that we lost over these last few months. And we felt good because we knew that we had really strong caregivers in hospitals like Henry Ford Hospital to care for our families and to help us mend. And so thank you, Denise, from the bottom of our heart.
Yes, absolutely. Wow. Well, since we're talking to you, Bina, we're going to continue with you as we talk about the struggle, and the struggle is real, right? And as a top financial institution executive, we've learned that you're strategizing on how to lend a hand amid this COVID-19 pandemic for people all over the world. And because they've made drastic changes, you guys have really looked at how you're doing business and what you're doing. Not that you weren't doing well in the first place, but as we continue to remain home, in most cases, the basics like a warm meal, laundry supplies have become a burden for many. And finances are at the forefront of everything for people right now in America. With so much job insecurities, people having lost jobs, aren't sure whether they're going to have a place to go back to work tomorrow. And the stimulus payments are gone, right? So at this point, the question is, how has Fifth Third Bank stepped up to get involved with relieving some of the financial struggles and the hurts within our community?
So I got to be honest, we were a little bit naive when we started this. And I don't know if Denise experienced the same thing, where we thought it was a moment. We thought COVID was we'll go in and we'll come out. But I will say my team was really focused on being really present for customers and communities. And so we got on the phone and said, what can we do to help in this, what we thought was a pretty narrow time frame? And so we spent a lot of time with partners and not-for-profit leaders talking about what could we do and how are we part of the solution? Unlike the last economic challenge we experienced in 08, 09, banks were a lot more healthier. And so we felt that it was our responsibility to get this one right in terms of being patient with our clients, being proactive, and also being part of the solutions that we need to have in our communities. So we were one of the first banks to really launch our COVID emergency response fund. And so we launched with a $9 million fund. And that's where the naivety came in, is because $9 million is a drop in the bucket of really what we realized was going to be a huge transition for our communities and our customers. And that this going home shortly and temporarily was going to be a much longer recovery than we anticipated.
Yeah.
So we're still working on it. But the one thing we did immediately was identify some emergency resources for food or shelter, and providing our not-for-profit partners assistance with their ongoing operations because their lives got interrupted. Their funding sources changed dramatically. And then when you think about our small business customers, who businesses just immediately had to just shut down. And some had great opportunities to continue to do their business because maybe they were essential in some of their sources, and even they might have had a strong online presence. But by and large, most of our small business customers were not prepared to go through this storm.
Yeah.
And so those are the things that we had to specifically provide resources directly for. And then we had to really get our act together around the PPP program. And for any of you all who are small business owners, it was a lot. I'm happy to say that we got through between round 1 and round 2, and we're able to lend to over 5,000 customers to give them their 5,000 I think we know we helped about 30,000 customers, $5.5 billion.
Oh, wow.
But I tell you, we started off with 300 employees for PPP. And by round two, we had 1,500 employees focused on serving the huge demand of customers we had. So thank you for your patience as we got our act together. But the resources we found and that we put out in our communities were essential. And we also changed our process, which is really important. We also went from 3 months it took to get a grant from us to 2 weeks. We changed the application to be a very short form. Tell us what you need the resources for so that we can immediately respond. Because what is an emergency? If an emergency is only an emergency for you, but not for us, it doesn't change how you can respond to those customers in need. So we really challenged ourselves to go from front to back, the process in which we can give resources out to our communities and not be an impediment or a hurdle. And the phone calls and the feedback we got from our response let us know that we did the right thing. And it enabled us to be emboldened enough to go back into the room and say, we were a little naive in thinking $9 million or $10 million is going to be enough. We need more resources. And so we're committed to continuing to work and listen to our customers, our not-for-profit organization, and be there for our customers. We're going to get this next one right.
Yeah.
So in 08 and 09, we were not part of the solution. We were all hurting together. We want to be part of the solution and we want to be proactive. We called all of our customers to ask them, how can we help? We were forefronting, hey, what are some of the solutions to manage your finances? And so what I encourage you is if you haven't heard from your banker, call them yourself.
Yes.
Listen to all of the options. And if you don't hear what you need to hear, talk through what your real situation is, because we have a solution, but it requires a conversation. And for you not to say, well, if that's all you can offer me, I'll take it. Say, no, let's pause for a moment. Let me tell you my issue. Let me tell you what I need and how can I help? And I can assure you that we are listening, we're escalating concerns, and we're being responsive to our clients. And it's important for you to know we're in this with you. We're not watching you go through it. We want to help you through this.
Wow. That is really, really on point. And I think it's good information. So I want to make sure the audience is getting this information because as a small business owner myself, I'm listening to some of the things that you just said that maybe even I didn't consider. Because I mean, you get through and you get a little frustrated with the process. But one thing that you said right there is making sure you can have the conversation with someone and being able to tell them what you need, because you think that you just get this application and it's just a piece of paper and it may not get to where it needs to be. I mean, you don't consider that, hey, maybe I need to talk to someone and I can have the right conversation to get exactly what I need. So that's really good information. Any comments from anybody else before we move forward? Because I just want to make sure that our audience hear that. And as I'm looking at who's joining us, I'll say that while you all decide if you want to have a conversation. So Cerise Simpson Pennington just joined us. We had Bridget Kegler that just joined us. I mentioned that Beatrice Kelly maybe just joined us. So we have folk here that certainly are inside of some of our businesses, but others that may have an interest in knowing what you're saying. So thank you for that, Bina, and thank you for that as well, Denise. Before I move on, I guess, Kathy, I'm going to talk with you just for a moment, because from the insurance standpoint, we've talked about, and I'm going to come back to you, Denise, we've talked a little about health. I understand what banking is doing now from an insurance standpoint. I want to come from the conversation of the have and have nots, right? And inside of what we've been able to review in this disruption is that there is a line in the sand between the have and have nots. And although we already knew that, the year 2020 clearly gave us a vision for what that looks like, right? Yes. So as you think about that, we're all hurting in some way. You know, it may be, as Bina said, you might have lost someone, or Denise said you might have a family member that in Detroit, we knew a lot of people. They might not have been in our immediate family, but I'm here in North Carolina, and I have so many people that from the Michigan area that I know has now gone on to glory, that truly it's hurting when you can, how do you put it, come up on your Facebook page and you realize somebody is no longer here. That is just devastating, right? And so, how are your organizations making the determinations of what exactly to do to help those in need? And I'd like to hear from you, Kathy, about insurance and what's going on there.
Of course. And there's so many layers to what we do, right? So let me just start from the inside out. The very first thing that we did was, it's like you got to put your own oxygen mask on, right, before you can help somebody else, right? So our agents, immediately, what do we need to do? We live on those of them who are newer live on commission. Those of them that have been in the industry a while, they have residual income. They have, they're going to be okay. They qualified for those loans, all those different things. Okay. So the company immediately came out and said a few things. Number one, absolutely no one will lose their job in 2020. Just not going to happen. They said it was incredible, right? Well, we're a private company, we're mutual. So we're not reporting to shareholders and whatever. So immediately the chairman of the board said, I refuse, his words were, I refuse to lay someone off to make my balance sheet look better for anyone. So in 2020, so that was the greatest gift that we could be given, right? Because if I have to wake up every day, read the death toll on Facebook, and then worry about this, I was in Detroit, right? So I would read, worry about who's sick, worry about how we were going to get through the day, and then worry about my job. I can't function. So taking that off the table and letting me know that for myself and the people that I've brought to this career, we're going to be okay. That was step one. Step two, they brought in some stipends for them. So stipends for activity rather than result. That was super important. Hey, if you're going to just wake up every day and log in, here's a free Zoom account. If we can see that you're using it, we're going to throw you. They were doing a nice stipend every month so that people could survive. They canceled all the health insurance payments. No one has paid for their health insurance for almost 4 months now.
Whoa.
Wow.
And nobody has paid rent because we're not using the real estate, but the landlord didn't make it free, but it has been free. So those are the immediate things. Then we have to look to our clients. So I said to the agents, everyone needs to call every single person, right? Like Bina said, everybody needs a call. They need to know, first of all, that you're alive. Second of all, you need to check if they're okay. And every sales call, every call has been, I don't talk about anything until I find out, how are you? Like, I don't want to hear any, it's just, I stop and I ask, how are you? Are you sure? And then I ask it one more time because everybody goes, I'm fine. No. Are you really fine?
Yeah.
And then I want to listen. So we always say, God gave you one mouth and 2 ears. Could you please use them in that ratio, right? So we try and listen. And then we've done some forbearance for people who have payments, policies, things that don't have cash values in them. We're going to do forbearance. We waived so far 3 months of payments, and they have a year to make up the premium. If they never want to make up the premium, there's an option for that as well. For people who have cash value policies, this is my now third economic crisis that I've been through in this career, where I get those awful calls, and we get to say, well, how this was for a rainy day? Like it's raining. Okay. So it's okay. Like, it's okay to take this money out now. And they're like, are you sure now? I said, could you think of a bigger disaster? Like, what are you for? Okay. So, the home's not going to go into foreclosure, and we're not going to let the lights get turned off. We're not all these different things, right? I don't want people to emerge from this time deep in debt. Sure. They're not going to shut your power off right now, but they're going to keep counting, right? You're right. The water's not going to stop, but do you need $1,000 water bill in September? So let's try and figure this out. And then I have the privilege of giving people an alternative career. So I just brought on 6 people who literally graduated from college, of course, into debt, which is not forgiven or on forbearance, and they need a career. And I've spoken with people who had the job offer in their hand, ready to go to work, moved to town, and it was canceled.
Yes.
Doesn't exist. The company doesn't exist. I mean, retail doesn't exist, and restaurants don't exist, and entire companies, the airlines don't almost exist anymore, right? So here we are. And even though I'm just doing a small part, we're trying to help as many people as we can, as fast as we can. And then, of course, most importantly, the company came out with something called the Brave of Heart Fund. They started with $100 million. plus matching funds for all employees. And that's to go to, so Denise, I hope you have people for this. This is to go to the families of those who passed away if they were first responders in the COVID crisis.
Oh,
So
nice.
if we had someone who didn't have coverage or enough coverage, or I don't care what it is, and they did pass away in treating someone for COVID, please, they can apply for money. So I'm constantly seeing stories about this person who passed or that person who passed. They were a fireman, they were a paramedic, they were a nurse, they were a doctor. And I'm constantly sending this link because I want them to do an application and get a share of the $100 million. It's going to go much higher than 100 million because that's the base. Then the matches are going to come in. Every employee, and there's 25,000 of us, can give up to $5,000 and get it matched at 100%. So it's going to get much, much larger. And I have lots of information on that. So I hope that anyone, I don't want any family to suffer and say, we didn't do it in time. And we're out there issuing policies because we're not testing for COVID. I don't know what the second wave, the third wave, the 12th wave of this thing is going to be. But every person with a heartbeat needs to get covered, like right now. We've waived a lot of the blood work. We've waived a lot of the labs. We're willing to use a doctor's report from up to 24 months ago.
Wow.
As long as it's some type of medical information, because people need coverage, and we're gonna provide it. So
wow. I hope our listeners are hearing that. You need coverage, and now is the time to get it, because there are a lot of ways. You can have it. You can have it without ever having to shake a person's hand or have them come see you. Or whatever. We do everything virtual. It's not just us. The whole industry turned on a dime, which is amazing. So you have a 175-year-old product, and it turned on a dime overnight. It went to virtual application, touchless issue, and virtual delivery. Whoa.
In days.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's an applaud, because I mean, right at this point, we just got through talking about the have and have nots, and this is a chance for maybe even the have nots to have, right? So
absolutely. Like, how can you not get something for, like, I don't know, I'm just throwing in $20 a month, right? That's going to be the most important thing that you ever owned. And I've had the privilege of delivering that last love letter too many times in the last couple of months. And that last love letter looks a lot like a check.
Wow. Wow. Oh my gosh. I don't even know where to start.
Wow.
I'm gonna let Denise, if you want to add to that from your perspective of Henry Ford, or even comment. I'm blown away, because this is exactly the kind of information that we need, and people don't always have it, like from the banking perspective, right? And the insurance perspective, as well as even people that need it. Between myself and Fifi, we have needs, right? I mean, because you guys are in this space, I'm in a whole different place outside of the next journey for retirement, or the age where people exactly need insurance but may not have it, right? So awesome stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I think the only thing I would say is kudos to Kathy, and I didn't get to give the kudos to Bina, while maybe not in my Henry Ford role, but I sit on the board of a few nonprofits, and so I know the PPP process, and the angst that was there in the beginning for critical organizations, like our donor, I sit on the Gift of Life board. So when you think about the organizations that were thrown into spirals, it wasn't necessarily even always from an entrepreneurial perspective. It was core things that we need that came from nonprofits. And I think, to Kathy's point, we did have first responders, and I will make sure that I follow up, who, of course, because they were employed, maybe had some level of coverage, but certainly they were young. I mean, we had young people. We had a 32-year-old that sat at the front desk of one of our sites. And as you could imagine, at the beginning of the pandemic, what knowledge we had and didn't have about exactly what you said, literally putting the mask on first, if you think about that, but where we had masks and PPE. And you never know if it was community acquired or if it was acquired in the workplace. And we never tried to figure that out. But we do know that people were vulnerable if they were in those, first responder spots. And so that's wonderful to know that there are resources. The other thing I would say is, from a healthcare system perspective, we did some of the things that you described in terms of first trying to make it safe for our team to come in. And so making sure that they had what they needed at a time that we never knew how difficult it was to secure a mask. Or it didn't used to be difficult, but it became incredibly difficult to bind this point because we didn't know what we were up against. And so we knew the supplies that we had, but we didn't know the depth we would have to go through to get them. And then acknowledging that it was, I think our teams do life and death work every day, but this truly became life and death work as we realized what they were giving. And Detroit became an epicenter of the virus very quickly. So a lot of effort spent around making sure that our team was secure from an economic perspective, but we also curtailed our whole business. So similar, we have retail components in healthcare. We have components that are not within the footprint of our hospitals. We moved to telemedicine. We shut down sites. And so really a lot of strife was created, and we created some have-nots. I'm not too proud to say that, because the way we had to stratify our business, we still have people that may be furloughed. Thank God we've called back many of them, but we didn't have that benefit to say that we could spread it across all 30,000. We had to concentrate it on those that were on the front line taking care of patients, because we also had to care for the community in an incredibly different way. And so dealing with homelessness, dealing with all the social determinants of health that we always deal with. But as you also know, and I think maybe we get a chance to touch on it a little bit later, when you look at an environment like Southeast Michigan that has a very large and very proud, diverse community, we were shown in COVID again the vulnerabilities that we have as a society for things that we hadn't taken care of before. And so people didn't come with all of the resources that they needed to be healthy. So there was the sad extreme end, of course, of those that lost their loved ones, but many people had COVID and thank God survived, but they had a haul. They had a multi-week journey of recovery, and you can't do that in your car or outside of a home. You had to go somewhere to recover. So we partnered with community agencies to find 14-day shelter for people that were homeless so that they could recover. We on the spot realized that we had to create COVID survival kits, because if you were going to go into an environment where you needed additional things that we may take for granted, like having a thermometer to check your temperature regularly, or being able to just have pain relief, have masks for your family so they could stay protected. Because if you listen to what the CDC asked us to do, at a certain level of affluence, it was easy, but some people have one bathroom. So telling people not to share bathrooms and to shelter in place in a way that you didn't have to share certain things to reduce the infection rate wasn't always possible. So I think we definitely needed each partner, our banking partners, our insurance partners, our small business partners. Our teams were fed literally every day. We said, you have to make light sometimes of a very painful situation. So instead of the freshman 15, we said the COVID-19, because you were eating with the generosity of the community, and then we started to figure out, we can keep some of our small businesses afloat, right? Because we'll order food. And so as team members, we would send the food. And so we figure if we send a food order for the emergency department, that's helping that restaurant to stay afloat. So the concept of have and have nots, we deal with it every day. Social determinants of care have always been something we've had to address. But what I would say, and I think it's echoed through what we're all saying, our teams rose to the occasion. People were delivering food. People were finding places for people to stay. And sometimes that was both our team members, because the stratification of incomes of a healthcare worker, we're still on a journey to have everyone at $15 an hour. And so we also knew we had to immediately look within to make sure that we didn't create more vulnerability in our families. Because if you think about an environmental services team member and how important they were during this crisis, but you were asking someone who was at the lowest end of the wage scale to actually be the infection defense, because how they cleaned that environment really made the difference. And so I walked with housekeepers every day and hugged and loved and did all the things until I realized I can't hug and love anymore. I had to start elbow bumping them. But in all seriousness, we absolutely needed every single person that we had, but we acknowledged that sometimes what we were asking them to do wasn't realistic. So we gave surge pay, and we gave surge pay in different ways than we normally do it, right? We did it for people who we knew we needed to make the gap for them, because they may have been the only wage earner in their family, as we saw people coming in and they would tell you, Denise, my husband lost his job today. You know, my daughter lost her job and is moving into our home. So you just saw it, you know, kind of hitting us on all levels, and we had to really block and tackle and figure out what our resources could do to help. And we were benefited, I think, by the partnership of organizations like Vinus, and we will be benefited by Kathy because I'm going to figure out how we help our families to tap into those resources.
Absolutely.
Wow. Wow, that is absolutely great. I really appreciate the information. I think we all need to hear. We kind of make assumptions that people know these things, and we don't. So it's really good to hear it from your mouths because you're in the trenches and you know what's going on and what the people need. And so, Bina, I just would like to learn a little bit more about your story. I've read about your upbringing and how the work that you do mainly is centered around caring for the hurting and the underserved. And I think, as you know, the feature of that is in the Career Master magazine for the summer issue, as well as on our website. And so I just would like to have you explain how you see opportunity to empower these communities and detail some of the information about how you go about doing that yourself personally.
So one of the things I really wanted to focus on when growing up, we had a big family and we lived together. My grandmother was had 8th grade education, owned her own home, worked as a domestic keeper, and had 9 kids. And so what I always knew is that my grandmother, with those 9 kids, single, raising all 9 kids, nobody ever went without, and even including the community. So my grandmother's house was always a place where people could seek shelter, food, whatever we had made available to the community. And so I saw that growing up. And for me, that stuck with me. And so when I thought about being the first one to go on to college in my family, you know, I had a good, smart brain around finances and numbers until I got an accounting degree. But I thought, is this really what I want to do for the rest of my life? Really count numbers, or is it a way that I could do something different with it? And really be reflective of what I saw my grandmother do every day, was to care for others. And so the proudest moment I have is thinking about the work that I do every day and seeing she's in heaven now, but I believe she's proud of me, and and that I'm living and focused on the things that are the most important, which is caring for the most vulnerable. Not like a Denise or Kathy, but just in a different way around finances and helping communities that are suffering, helping them revitalize and bounce back. And so that line in the sand around have and have nots, it feels like sometimes it's cement and not because it feels like we never cross that chasm of how we do that. But it's so important that no matter what roles we are in these corporate settings or in our own small businesses, that we figure out what's our assignment and where can we be our best person to make a difference in somebody else's life. I tell people I know the art of giving, and that is when God puts something in your hand, you're supposed to leave it open so that it flows through you, and you're a good steward about it. And so for me, everything I do is around what am I supposed to do with these resources for others? And how do I make it accessible and not a barrier? And how do I create and help people understand sort of this mystery around finances, this mystery around resources for your small business, this mystery around sort of getting your piece of the American dream? How do we make this simple? How do we not put up all these barriers so that you go five or six generations before you own your first home or own your first business? How do we create that sense of being in this together? And I think that's the most important part of the role that I'm in, is that we launched the $32 billion commitment. That's a B, 32 billion.
Wow.
And the goal was around providing capital and access to credit for small businesses, for first-time homeowners, for small businesses to access products and services from the bank so they can grow or expand their business, or to invest in communities. And I'm happy to say, and I've got a lot of my coworkers on the phone, so I don't take credit for this alone, but we're ready to close out on that $32 billion And we've been ahead of pace the whole time, and we're going to blow through the $32 billion
Wow.
and be able to celebrate some significant impacts in our community. Whether it's the person who sends us a letter saying they never thought it was possible to go from being a renter to a homeowner. And can you imagine the change and trajectory of your life if you can now, you have the assets you're paying for. You're no longer a renter,
Yes.
or your business go from employing 2 or 3 people to 20 people.
Amazing.
All those resources that we put out in communities, I believe they're about helping the community, not about the bank or the $32 billion. The number is a big number, but what it means is that there's people every day, one homeowner, one small business owner, one not-for-profit organization, resources that they didn't have before to make appreciable difference in life. And that's
Wow.
what it's about.
Wow. Thank you for sharing. It's very transparent and very open to let us know how you were reared and your grandmother's influence on your life. I'm sure we can relate because I lived with my grandmother as well. And certainly it means a lot when you have that security and that strength and that example. So if you ladies want to add, or I can ask Fifi, I know we were talking and we had talked about success, as Bina was mentioning to each of us, that, her part of her success is giving and being involved in the community. And I know that's the same for all of us. And then as we consider Career Mastered as Career Mastered's mission, it is to advance women's leadership and to also be there as an example for the next generation. And so I'm just going to go out on a limb and say, you're the next generation. Okay. And so we're just going to say that hopefully in some small way, we can inspire or give you a line of sight of what is possible, because right now you have made your mark and you are continuing to make your mark in music, and we are going to see that star just continue to rise. And then I also like the fact that you found a way to navigate through that by becoming a massage therapist. And so I just want to talk just for a second. You may have already shared, is how do you look at success, and do you have some line of sight of what you want that to be? When you get to that there, or are you continuing to just go through, with faith that it's going to happen? Just give us some of your secrets, if you will, and then maybe how we can be of assistance in that process.
Most definitely. Well, like I said, I'm taking everything in, everyone's perspective, and thank you so much for inspiring me. Yes, I am the next generation. So thank you for paving the way. I'm definitely going to contact each of you for something that I probably will need. But my definition of success is I'm just continuing to evolve. For a minute there, I felt like I was stuck in certain spaces, but to be able to see where I've come from to now, it just shows that, if you don't settle, if you don't sit there and wallow in depression, wallow in, oh, I can't do it, or wallow and I'm just, not going to ever make it, but try. That's all you need to do is try. So for me, success for me in this moment is that I am trying. I am putting forth the effort. I am putting one foot in front of the other. And so, like I said, through all the various things I've gone through, I can always just look back and see that God has given me some type of resilience to continue to try. Looking at my father who's been recently ill, but throughout the years, he's had different surgeries, and but to see him continue to get up and live and move and do all he can, that shows me that if he's not saying, you know what, enough is enough, I'm tired of going up under the knife, I'm tired, let me just sit here and just, give up, I can continue to move forward as well. My mother, who had a double mastectomy, but she went to school after so many years, became an educator, and just recently retired 2 weeks ago for 22 years of teaching. I'm like, if she could persevere and push through all the things she had to go through, then so can I. So to see their success with keeping on, and not giving up, not saying, you know what, I'm just done, I'm tired, I can't do anymore. For me to see my parents continue to just push and move and climb and just say, you know what, It may not have always been easy. It may not be easy right now because my father is, again, he's still suffering with some illnesses, but he doesn't talk defeated. Of course he gets down, but he doesn't talk defeat. And every time we ask him, how you doing? I'm blessed. I'm blessed. I'm like, I know, Daddy, I know you're blessed, but how you feel? I'm blessed. And I'm like, just tell me how you feel. But he won't let anything really come out of his mouth that's to, seem negative, because he wants to speak positive and wants to speak life, even when you can see physically with his, that he's in a space. So that is, to me, is to be able to look beyond where you are and see and have hope and have a vision of what God has in front of you. And so, again, to be able to look at where I've come from, that is success enough, to see where I may go. I want to elevate even more in my songwriting. I want the song Dancing in the Rain to reach masses of people, and hopefully I'll find a way to really get it out there even more. I'm going to be working on a video to be able to have visual to it. So perhaps that'll help get it spread about, because my whole thing is to be able to inspire and to uplift and to impact lives through the medium of writing and singing. And it's funny because at one point I really didn't consider myself a singer. My sisters, they are the singers of the family, and I used to play the drums or be in the background or be on the back pew sleep. I don't know. But here recently, God has allowed me to really hone in on my own voice, and to hone in on the writing that he has placed through me. So I want to be able to use that even more. I want the songwriting. I want my voice that he's given to me to be able to soothe hurting souls. A lot of people are here hurting, and I think when they hear a song or they hear a message, it can help them. And so that's success to me, to know that someone says, you know what, I just listened to your video. I just heard you singing. I just heard whatever. And that just really touched a place in me. That just really helped me. You have no idea what I was going through, but listening to that song or listening to you do a spoken word or whatever it is, really blessed me. So to me, that is success. It's not about the money. If it comes, thank God. I'm trying to, increase my finances and stuff. But at the end of the day, the success for me is to be able to see someone who was broken, someone who was hurting, someone who was in a low place, come to the light and come to a healing place and come to saying, you know what, life is worth living now.
Yes.
So that's success to me.
Wow. Wow. Amazing. Amazing. And so one of the words that you didn't say, but you are saying it is that persistence and perseverance and
Yes.
and that permanence. And so I'm going to use those words, if we can carry that, to ask the question, how do you push boundaries to always do the work to help others? And I'd like to have you, Denise, Kathy, and Bina, you've already answered that. So maybe Denise and Kathy, you can share, how do you push boundaries to be persistent and have perseverance?
Yeah, I mean, I think, Fifi, you are all inspiring. And to have the perspective you have as a young woman is a tremendous gift, because it takes some of us longer to get there, right? And so I think stay authentic in that space of understanding that it really is a journey. And I think to your question, Lisa, pushing boundaries and being committed that you are going to have impact, it takes all those P's, right? So you do have to be persistent and you do have to persevere, because the journeys are never easy, right? Whether that's a professional perspective, a personal perspective, you have to know who you are. And I think you've heard that from Phoebe's perspective. We all have a story, Bina, as she shared hers, and knowing that story and what motivates you. And we call it our why, right, in a professional space, but your why typically will translate into your home as well. So why do you do what you do?
Right.
Knowing that it's a choice, for all of us. And so pushing boundaries for me is about being true to that why. And my why, both personally and professionally, is making an impact and a difference. I mean, literally, I have it in my office. It's that I am here to make it better for someone else.
Yes.
And professionally, I can do that sometimes through lots of things: mentoring, opening doors, creating opportunities for people, being that sponsor in the room for them when they don't even know that you're being a sponsor for them, asking the question that I know needs to be asked to move the agenda in a particular direction. And your why personally is the same, right? Wanting to have that impact. We've, talked those of us that are mothers, but everyone has a role. Fifi's talked about it as a daughter,
Right.
and as a sibling, that desire to push and make it better for
Right.
those that you love. And so I think it's just refreshing to be in a dialogue and conversation where there's so much synergy around knowing who we are, whose we are,
Yep.
and being able to push and leverage that to get the things out of life that we want.
Wonderful. Absolutely. I agree. Kathy?
Yeah, I think that for me, I had talked about not failing, but servant leadership is its own reward, right? So I think the higher you are promoted in an organization, the more selfless you have to get.
Mhm.
And so if we begin every day with a thought of how can I help everyone around me, and it's not just the people who maybe work with me or for me or above me or whatever, everywhere. It's about servant leadership and what people need. And in this time, the need might be personal, it might be professional, it might be, and I think that, to what Denise was talking about, how, the person who's doing the housekeeping services and whatever, all of a sudden became the most important person in the building. And we were in this quiet, still time where we could really think about that. And every single person being so important probably led us to this moment where we're talking about the importance of every single human, right? Every single person being so important. And it's incredible. I don't see how we can ever go back. Like, there's this moment, there's the before, and there's the after. And I
Yeah.
think when we come out of this, I hope soon, right? When we get to go outside again and we get to come out of this, that everything is different. I just don't think that any of us want to go back to what that was before. I'm not really interested in it. I think we proved to everyone that we can do all these things. I think that we proved that no matter who you are, we can do it, right. So how important are the teachers, and how important is every single role that we need, all of us, to make this happen. So servant leadership, super important. Setting goals, giving yourself space, reassessing the goals, having measurable goals, right? So we talk about this all the time. Setting a goal and saying, I want to, be queen of the universe. That's not a goal, okay? A goal. I mean, I talk to people all the time, like, what's your goal? I'm going to, be in charge of the world. No. A goal is measurable. It has
specific
stages. I tell them it's like a basketball game. We need to keep score. I need to have like some periods here where I can actually stop and say, where are we? So we don't get to the end and go, oh, I was playing a completely different game. Where were you? So those are the important parts. And I think that having people keep you accountable. Now, I will say this. People ask me all the time, oh, will you be my accountability partner? My answer to that is no. I cannot keep you accountable if you won't keep yourself accountable. If you won't get up and do what you need to do every single day, I can't do that for you. I will be your cheerleader. I will be your go-to person. I will be your sounding board. I will be everything for you. But I cannot make you do you. So if you will do what you said you'll do, then I will be your sounding board.
I love that perspective. Oh gosh, Kathy. I love it. You gotta love it. I love it. Oh goodness. So the next time somebody asks me to be their accountability partner,
Nope.
I have
No, like, I'll meet you at the gym, but I am not lifting your weights too. Like, no.
I love it. All right. I agree. I totally agree. So I'm looking to see Tamara and Jada Grandi Mock, Beatrice, Diane Palmer, Arnie Walker. They're with us. We're looking at Cerise Simpson. Let's see who else is here. Do you all have questions? Candace Russian. Do you have questions that we could ask our panelists? Now is the time to get those questions here. And we keep having, I think we lost Denise, so we're having a few challenges. Not sure what that is, I think. But if you have questions, let's ask them now. Otherwise, we will continue the conversation because we're coming down to the stretch. It's about 5 minutes. And it doesn't look like I have any questions right now. So my last questions for everybody is, what advice do you have for someone who has a desire to master her career? using some of the advice that we had, some of the conversation we had today. Part of what we do here is we stick with our theme, but we don't leave without giving advice or talking about how women can be successful. So I'll just go around and ask you all to do that. And I'll start with you, Bina, and then we'll end with you, Kathy.
All right, before I answer that question, there's two things I wanted to say. One, to Fifi, it's already done, right?
Yes.
So you just got to walk in. The things that you
Yes.
spoke to existence, he's going to make happen. And I
Amen.
want to see and enjoy and say, I knew her when she spoke it into existence
Oh,
because it's
wow.
already
Thank
done.
you. Thank you.
So that's important. He
Thank
just
you.
put hard to make sure that I articulated it to you.
Awesome.
I receive it. Thank you so much.
And then Lisa,
Wow.
you said something yesterday, and I don't know if you even realized how profound you were when you talked about accessibility. You used that word when you talked about what your desires for Career Mastered and how important it was for you in this work to help other women and by being accessible. And so that is so amazing to me that that you are doing this work to make our opportunities even better. So for that, I want to say thank you because sometimes you don't realize how important your efforts are. And what you talked about was how accessible you are. And that's been a key component of what we think is really important is around accessibility and what Kathy said around being a servant leader and sort of thinking about doing things for others. I think about my team, but what you said, Kathy, touched me when you said, think about who else you can help besides just your team who works for you. And so thank you, ladies, for just blessing me in this moment, because that made a difference for me. Because really, when you do this work, sometimes you just spend all your time thinking about sort of the next assignment or the next success component of what you have to do. But really, you guys have just reminded me of some really good, important things that we have to breathe and remind of why and who we are in our being.
Wow.
That's all I got to say.
Well, you got me in tears. I'm not trying to cry here, but I appreciate it. I felt that, and I take it, and I felt it. I mean, I know when the anointing is someplace, and it's here right now. So I'm just going to put that there, and I'll start with you, Denise.
Yeah, I was going to say, I echo what Bina said. You said to us, Lisa, that when you call, we always say yes.
Yeah,
That was another statement that you made. And I think when you talk about giving someone advice about how to be in a place, if career is kind of the cornerstone. And I think we would all say that career is just a part of who you are, right? It's a blessing to be able to do things that you love and generate an income. But who we are is so much bigger than those careers. And so for those that I mentor, I try to remind them of that. It's not wanting to be, often people will say, well, how do I become like you? Or how do I become, a CEO if it's a title? And I tell people that's because this is what you see.
yeah.
But the journey to get there, really should be one that's paved with just this, right? Good, solid, trusting relationships. I tell people to be grateful and grateful even when you don't know why, but having a grateful heart for me really helps to be a balancer because I just always try to find something good in every situation. And if you're going to pursue the powerhouse that's on this screen and be in those roles, you know that you're going to have peaks and you're going to have valleys. And in those valleys, you still should have gratitude for wherever you're standing, for whatever you're going to go through and persevere. I think as we were saying to Fifi, you need to be grateful. And I think, not that there's a last, but I'm with Bina, I could go on and I think we're all really full because it's been a powerful conversation. But I think the other piece of it is always remembering that it's bigger than you. And I think for me, and I'm blessed in the sense that I get to serve in healthcare. So literally, you can see what's bigger than you, right? You see people who may have everything from a, means perspective, but it really, we know can't buy us health.
Right.
And so knowing that this is a journey about what you really want people to remember you for. And I tell everybody every day, pick the title, senior VP, business owner, whomever. At some point, we are all going to make our transition, and people might memorialize you for the job that you did.
Yeah.
But as we know, it's been famously quoted, right? They're going to remember a little bit of what we say, but it's really going to be how we made them feel.
Right.
Right.
And so leave that impression of authenticity with people. And I think whatever you're aspiring to do, career, best wife, best mom, best friend, whatever that is, you're going to achieve it.
Beautiful. Beautiful. And you, Kathy?
Oh my goodness, my head is so full. So can you tell me more narrowly what you want me to talk about? Like, what is
Yeah. No. It's mainly what advice you would leave. In fact, I'm going to have you answer a question because we got 4 questions and I don't know if we have time. So
Okay.
one question is, what is the best advice that you've been given
Okay.
about your career?
Absolutely, to be coachable,
Okay.
because if you, the moment you think you know everything, or that you've mastered your craft, is the day that you actually stopped growing. So just be coachable. I don't care what your experience was or who you think you are. If you can't learn something new, you have died. So, you know, and we just proved that. I taught an 80-year-old how to use Zoom. So,
Yeah.
okay,
Yeah. Be
don't tell
coachable.
me you don't know. Okay, the picture moves on the screen. So please just be open and coachable. They couldn't believe it. Just be open and coachable, because if you can choose someone, like you said, that you trust, and you can have your personal board of directors, whoever that is that you decide that is on that, and you can rely on them to tell you an honest truth with authenticity, then please take the advice.
Yes.
Right? Do it. Don't argue about it. I think that there's so many times someone will ask me for some mentoring advice, and I'll bring them in and then give them something that I've experienced, and they just want to argue about it.
Yeah.
I'm not arguing about it. Like,
Right.
Mine is laughing at me. It's true, right? They just want to pick it apart and argue about it. Okay, I get it. It doesn't fit you exactly like a puzzle piece. Use what I'm giving you, adapt it to your life, and grow from it. Stop fighting all the time, and just look for the positive in it. Look for the growth, right?
Wow. And that's very good. Be coachable. Now, someone asked, what is the worst advice you've been given on a job?
Know your place.
Wow.
Mm.
Oh my gosh. That was like pointed, like really know your place.
Can you tell I'm angry about it, right? So I was raised with this phrase: you can't do that, you're a girl.
Wow.
And nothing makes me angrier.
Yes.
I think that's why I grind my teeth at night. Like, so when I was pregnant, both times I asked God to give me a girl, right? So I got 2 girls, and I teach them differently, but that was my father saying that all the time, like, you're different, you have brothers, and you can't do that, you're a girl. And so as an adult, my relationship with him is not so good, right? So we talked, and he said to me, I'm so proud of you. You outshone me. You have a better education. You make more money. You did everything. And I said, well, you know why, right? And he said, I have no idea. I said, because you told me I couldn't do it.
Wow.
Do you know his response was, but that's total BS.
Uh-huh.
And I said, that was such a lightning moment for me. Like, every time I've heard that in my life, it's just BS. Really? You're just saying that to me to just keep me down?
Yeah.
It's not even true?
Yeah.
So it's the worst advice I've ever gotten. And he
Yeah.
said, I'm never going to give you advice again, because clearly you know better.
Yeah.
Done. Finish.
Yeah.
Okay.
I
So
love it.
absolutely zero tolerance for people who say things like that. Zero tolerance for people with hatred in their heart. I have no tolerance for any of this nonsense. When somebody shows you who they are, believe them and take them out.
Believe them. I love it. I love it. And with that, ladies, I think I'm going to take this last question, and then we're over by 2-3 minutes, which is not usual, but this conversation has been so robust and so substantive that I'm just going to go with the flow for a minute here. We have a question from Candace Russian. She says, what advice would you give to someone who doesn't have the resources and not sure where to start with their career, with what's going on, with what they want to do? Maybe she has a career, but she doesn't have the resources. What advice would you give them? Any
I mean, I think seek out a mentor. I mean, and we may just all do a sound bite, I guess, because I don't want to, hog. But I think I think definitely seeking out a mentor. I tell people try to identify someone that can give you some tools. And it might just be a little bit. So if you are in this situation where maybe you have a career, you're trying to change your career, reach out to someone. You'd be surprised. Those people are not going to say no. They may not, as Kathy said, be your coach per se. But they definitely will probably spend the 10-15 minutes to give you kind of a path to the next step. So I think mentorship is critical and profound. The only other thing I would add, of course, is be prepared, right? It's sometimes people will present themselves as wanting to do something and the leap is, a little bit long because maybe they haven't. I mean, when Fifi talked about wanting to be a massage therapist, she acknowledged she had a path, right? It wasn't as if she could just claim it and not do the work. So you've got to be prepared, to do the work. And I think that combination, I'm a visual person. So seeing someone do the things that I want to do is helpful to me. So mentoring is really that for me, somebody that helps give you that roadmap. And then being prepared, whatever that means for what it is you're seeking to do. So if you've got to acquire additional skills, do that. If I tell people all the time, if you've got to volunteer while you're working, I've had people and they're like, "Are you kidding me?" I'm like, it'll work out.
No.
You work and you volunteer in what it is that you're trying to do, they will see that you have the skills. And I can tell you a few people where that did transform them and move them into the next career.
Wow.
So be willing to do the work, whatever that means.
Wonderful.
And I'll just point out that, really spend some time with your gifts and talents.
Right.
Understand why God makes room for your gifts.
Yes.
So not identifying a title or a role that looks and sounds good, but He's given us all unique talents and gifts. Be willing to spend some time with yourself, understanding who you are, what your why is, and know that He will make room for your gifts.
Wonderful. Make room for your gifts. And really, at the end of the day, it's about our gifts and how we can give that away. So with that, I think we're going to conclude. I am so excited about what we have been able to talk about tonight. It's been wonderful. The cafe has been open and it's now time to close out. But before we close, I want to first of all thank my guests and thank the audience for being with us. We had a great audience of our community from Career Mastered and the women that are with us this evening. Thank you, ladies, for engaging, and thank you for the time to come into the cafe and ask great questions and reply on chat here with all of your comments and repeating some of the things that we had talked about. In addition to that, I would like to just mention that Career Mastered is again about advancing women's leadership. We have grown this community on Facebook from about 800-900 women to over 1,100 in less than 5 to 6 months. Wow. Now the key is to get us engaged in the community. Really, it's not about having a Facebook page and not engaging. It really is about the topics we want to discuss and the ability to help one another. This is complimentary. You're not having to pay to go to here, which in fact, a lot of people charge for. So here is to invite your friends to join in this community because you have exclusive rights to these topics before we put them on YouTube. And so that's really key. The other thing is our magazine is out, just up on Monday. So subscriptions are available both digitally and in print. And to get a copy of that, you just simply go to careermaster.com. And hopefully we're growing this across the globe. I'll let you know that inside of the 1,000 women, we have women from London, from India, from Pakistan, and all over the world. So I think that's important. And then lastly, I'd like to thank our sponsors again before we conclude. First, Rashim, thank you for producing us here. If you need a great producer, he's great with Prosperous Life. And with that, I think we're going to end. Thank you, Kathy. Thank you, Denise. Thank you, Vina. Thank you, Fifi. And thank you for sponsoring us, Fifth Third Bank and Henry Ford Health Systems. Have a good evening.
Night.
Good night. Thank you, Lisa.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great. So we'll see you, and I'm going to end it. And if you need anything, just shout out.
Okay. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye-bye.